In this latest edition of Fuck Around and Find Out, Nebraska, the state of Nebraska, going bankrupt. Nebraska farmers going bankrupt because of Trump's tariffs. They all love to vote for Trump out in Nebraska. Not all, but big majority of them. And look at now. Look what's happening to Nebraska. Going broke because of Trump. Never learn. Some people never learn. The one thing they never learn is that it is immigrants that make America great. Not Trump. He makes America shit. Immigrants.
So while the plight of the farmers is big right now, which the irony of knowing tariffs were coming and still planting crops that were going to be shipped overseas and not like having the foresight to think like, oh, this is a bad idea. Like the whole plan, I would think, would be to like plant things that could be sold domestically, but that's not the point of this post at all. The point of this post is I want to remind everybody that JD Vance owns part of, he's invested in a website, it's called Acre Trader, and it is a way for you to partially invest in farmland, and then that farmland is then leased back to the farmer. So they benefit bigly from farmers going bankrupt, defaulting on their mortgages, defaulting on their loans, having to foreclose on their farmland so they can buy it up, pennies on the dollar, and then release it to those farmers and make profit off of that. What I found when I was looking into Acre Trader to remind myself of the details of it, I found out that it is funded by, it's called Naria Capital, and it was founded by JD Vance in 2019 with a guy called Colin Greenspan. And the other investors are Peter Thiel, Eric Schmidt, who used to be a Google CEO, Mark Andreessen, and Scott Dorsey. Mark Andreessen is the guy with the head like this that is a tech billionaire advisor to the current orange guy. He's a giant AI investor. So that is a cast of characters that are pretty heavily invested in this Acre Trader system. So Vance was one of the co-founders of the Naria investment group. He took a step back in 2022 when he was focusing on politics, but their initial fundraising was $93 million, and that was like way back when. And they are partially invested in this Acre Trader. So there is no incentive for this current administration to help the farmers. This is kind of part of the plan. Help them lose their property so they can come in and buy it and then profit from it, and then continue to keep those people in debt servitude. So when they're crying out there saying, we need a handout, we need help is not coming. Help was here last summer when everyone was telling you this is exactly what's going to happen. Because Acre Trader was a thing and people were talking about it last summer. I posted about it several months ago. This is not new. So when people are crying about it now, it's like, oh, you want us to fail? We didn't want you to fail last summer, and you guys taught us libtards and told us to shove it. We don't know what we're talking about. So no one is going to come help you because you voted for the person who was out to enrich himself and his friends and not help the regular guy. That's always been very apparent that was the plan. You didn't want to see it. You didn't want to listen to anybody that had opposing views as you, and here we are. And this is why politicians should divest from their companies and investments. Like when you have investments like this, and then you go into a point where you can influence policy and it would enrich yourself, like that's the most massive conflict of interest. And like it's so lost in the sauce and all the other chaos that's happening that nobody even really cares about it. But this in itself would be like a Watergate impeachable offense back in the day. But nobody cares anymore because it's just one of a million. So good luck, farmers. Your orange daddy is not here to help you. He's here to help himself.
Me and my husband owned a cattle ranch here, and I can confirm that all of the cattle ranchers here overwhelmingly voted for Trump. We support him. We voted for him. Something like 70% of our entire workforce is undocumented immigrants, and they straight up are not showing up for work anymore. They have all either fled the country, fled the state. They don't want to get raided while at work, so they have just moved on to work somewhere else. And straight up, we are going to go bankrupt now. We are going to go bankrupt. And yeah, we voted. We knew that the immigrants would get deported and he was coming after immigrants, yet we still voted for it. Overwhelmingly voted for our own demise. I was talking to my husband last night, and I have to admit that it seems a bit foolish now when you think about it like that we voted for something that is now putting us directly out of business.
Hey, it's Joe from Georgia. So we're getting ready for the first domino to fall, and we know what happens after the first one falls. Well, the state of Nebraska, the governor, Jim Pillen, has asked the federal government for help because they're not going to be able to pay their bills this year. And here's the problem in Nebraska. They had over a $2 billion contract with the Chinese government to export soybeans to China. Well, out of that $2 billion, they've canceled all the contracts. So out of that $2 billion, $350 million was state revenue taxes. They're not getting any of that. And the governor also goes on to say that because the migrant farmers weren't able to work in Nebraska this summer, that those people didn't pay their taxes either. And the farmers who already have crops in the ground, folks, they've already spent their money. They're going to need help too because they're not getting any money from the contracts anymore. So Nebraska is the first state.
Happy Labor Day, everybody. Today's Fuck Around and Find Out episode is brought to you by Nebraska farmers. Because how did you not see it coming when you totally voted for it? And just as a friendly reminder, the state of Nebraska during the 2024 election went 59.3% towards President Orangeman.
News out of Nebraska today. Apparently our entire state is going to go bankrupt in 2 quarters. Me and my husband owned a cattle ranch here, and I can confirm that all of the cattle ranchers here overwhelmingly voted for Trump. We support him. We voted for him. Something like 70% of our entire workforce is undocumented immigrants, and they straight up are not showing up for work anymore.
Now, I do want to offer you a little bit of advice. So you said you have about 2 months before y'all go bankrupt. Well, that means you have 2 months to figure out how to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And please remember that during this time, any form of government assistance is considered socialism, which is the very thing that you guys like to vote against. Because if you do accept it, that makes you guys hypocrites. But feel free to work outside because vitamin D exposure from the sun is really good for you. And also, it is an excellent form of cardio.
Maybe y'all saw the news out of Nebraska today. Our state has, in fact, gone bankrupt. Due to his tariffs and the loss of all of our migrant farm workers, our state has lost over $500 million. It's so bad that Governor Pillen had to call and ask him for a bailout, and we don't know if he's going to give it to us. My husband and I did used to own a farm here in Nebraska, and thanks to the loss of all the workers, we went bankrupt, and bankruptcies in our state overall are at a record high right now. It's still just so weird to me because we all voted red. Nebraska, every county, every district overwhelmingly voted red. And that seems to have been the reason that we're all out of business now. And that just doesn't make that much sense to me. If you vote for a party, shouldn't they protect you? Shouldn't they pass policies that will help you stay out of bankruptcy? And it's not just the farms, but the whole state is going under because we voted red. When you're a farming family like mine, I can see now that it is important to think before you vote.
Good morning. It's a beautiful day to talk about Fuck Around and Find Out in the state of Nebraska. That's right, boys and girls. It's time to talk about tariff troubles in Nebraska because, the tariff war now. Canada, Mexico, China, you know that those 3 countries account for 90% of the corn exports in Nebraska. Plus, I'm seeing farmers now taking to TikTok saying that they didn't vote for this. They didn't vote for tariffs. They didn't vote for getting rid of their workforce because they're all illegals. They didn't vote for this. Oh my God, the government subsidies, all this has been, and their farms are going bankrupt. You voted for it. Zero. None. I have no sympathy. I'm sorry to say that, and I'm sorry to be the asshole in this situation, but fuck around and find out. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes, as Taylor Swift would say. You voted for this, and you're getting everything you voted for. Problem is, you're taking the rest of the country down with you.
Brothers and sisters, today we need to have a real talk about what's happening out in Nebraska and across farming communities in America. Farmers who once stood firmly behind Donald Trump and his trade policies are now feeling the sting of tariffs, broken promises, and collapsing markets. What makes this story even more powerful is that many of these farmers are now expressing regret that they didn't listen when black people, along with other marginalized groups, warned them about the dangers of putting blind faith in political promises that were never designed to protect them. Let's start by understanding how deep this issue runs. Agriculture has always been a backbone of the U.S. economy, and farming communities, especially in states like Nebraska, have historically leaned conservative. For generations, they've supported policies and politicians who promise to protect American farming, but here's the contradiction. While farmers are told their work is essential, they are often sacrificed in trade wars and global economic battles. When Trump initiated tariffs against China, the intention was to punish Beijing and boost American industries, but in reality, the tariffs backfired. China retaliated by pulling back on American agricultural imports, soybeans, corn, and pork especially. Nebraska farmers, who rely heavily on exports, were hit the hardest. Now, let's put some numbers to this. Nebraska is one of the largest producers of soybeans and beef in the country. China was their biggest customer. When the tariffs rolled out, Chinese buyers turned to Brazil, Argentina, even African nations to fill the gap. The result, prices for Nebraska farmers plummeted. To cope, the Trump administration offered bailout packages, billions of dollars in subsidies to farmers. But here's the problem. These bailouts didn't solve the long-term problem. They were band-aids. Many small and mid-sized farmers couldn't compete with the larger corporations that swallowed up those subsidies. Family farms collapsed under debt, land was sold off, and the rural economy suffered a hit that's still being felt today. Now, what are these farmers saying today? Many of them are admitting on record that they regret supporting policies that worked against their own interest. They regret not questioning the propaganda, and some have even said, "We should have listened when people told us this was going to hurt." Here's where it connects to us. For decades, black communities have been sounding the alarm about political manipulation, about how promises get made during campaigns, but policies are written in ways that harm working people, especially the poor and marginalized. Black Americans, who have lived through centuries of broken promises, have long warned, don't just follow words, follow the mind, follow the policies, follow the history. It's important to see the parallels here. Just as farmers were sold a dream that tariffs would make America great again, black communities have been told countless times that this time will be different, only to be let down. Both groups have experienced betrayal, though in very different contexts. The real question is, why didn't farmers listen? Part of it is political loyalty. Part of it is a mindset that ignores voices from marginalized communities, assuming we don't have the wisdom to understand economics or policy. And yet, our communities have been forced to understand these systems for survival. Think about it. Black farmers have been fighting land loss, discriminatory USDA lending practices, and market exclusion for decades. They knew from experience what it looks like when the government turns it back. So when black people warned that tariffs would hurt the average farmer, that was knowledge rooted in lived experience. This is bigger than just farming or tariffs. It's about recognizing how power operates in America. Politicians often rally their base with slogans, scapegoats, and quick fixes. But when the dust settles, the working class, whether in Nebraska or in the inner cities, ends up paying the price. This should teach us all to question policies before blindly supporting them. Who actually benefits? Is it the small farmer, or is it the corporations that can weather the storm? Is it the average worker, or is it the wealthy elite who are insulted from the consequences? We also have to look at the global picture. While American farmers were collapsing under tariffs, other nations are stepping in. Brazil increased soybean export to China dramatically. African nations have seen the opportunities to expand trade. Meanwhile, American farmers who once dominated the market are sidelined. This shows something critical. In today's interconnected world, isolationist policies don't work. You can't just cut yourself off with tariffs and expect to win. The global economy will simply adjust, and often it leaves ordinary Americans worse off. So, what can we take away from Nebraska farmers' regret? Listen to marginalized voices. Too often, people dismiss black perspectives as emotional or irrelevant, but time and time again, our analyses have proven accurate. Don't mistake temporary bailouts for real solutions. Just like stimulus checks don't solve systemic poverty, farm bailouts didn't solve the structural issues of global trade. Recognize when political loyalty blinds you. Farmers weren't just backing tariffs. They were backing a politician they thought was one of them. But at the end of the day, policy doesn't care about slogans. Brothers and sisters, Nebraska farmers are now facing the painful consequences of decisions they made at the ballot box. Decisions fueled by promises that were never meant to protect them. Their regret should be a lesson for all of us. When communities warn about injustice, exploitation, or harmful policies, those voices deserve to be heard, not dismissed, because history has shown that the wisdom of the oppressed often sees further than the comfort of the privileged. And so, as we reflect on their pain, let us also recognize the power of foresight within our own communities. We must continue speaking the truth even if it's ignored, because eventually the truth always comes to light. Thanks for watching, and if it's your first time here, kindly subscribe, comment, like, and share this video. See you in the next episode. Goodbye.